Welcome into the Friday edition of Let's Bet It. I'm Alex Glaze. He's Jared Smith. Jared, it's been a minute since I've joined you. Actually, I think this my first Friday show?
Might be. It might have been. I think early maybe we might have done one, but it's definitely been at least a month or two.
It's been a long time. I mean, I know you guys do the weekend look ahead on this show. Usually I'm on the Thursday night. We got some action to talk about, but it has been a great week of sports. We got Maction. We finished up the World Series, obviously NBA, an exciting Thursday night football game for some. It's been a great week.
Yeah, a lot of I think now that we're into the fall, like it's really the fall months. Baseball's over, basketball, hockey, even college hoops. We're going to talk a little college hoops on the show, I think, coming up soon, which is really exciting as well. And last night's game was, you're right, it was exciting, and then it wasn't exciting. And then it was almost exciting at the end. We almost had a backdoor cover, but we didn't. So there were some disappointed people. But as a Jets fan, I just can't have nice things because Mike White was ready. Everything was looking great. You even tweeted it out. He had the hair, the fade was looking fresh. And then all of a sudden he wasn't playing anymore. And then the game was over.
I want to ask you something before we get into today's slate here. Is every quarterback on the Jets roster better than Zach Wilson? Because it certainly feels like every quarterback on the Jets roster is better than Zach Wilson. I mean, Josh Johnson came in and was shredding the Colts. Mike White, we've seen what he can look like. Zach Wilson has not looked like either of those dudes. And he was on the sideline kind of just doing like oh no, everyone knows I'm not great now.
I think it's hard to compare because Josh, first of all, Josh has been around a long time. He's played for a lot of teams. He's gained a lot of experience. And Mike White's been in the league, I think, for 3 years. I think it's hard to compare a kid like Zach Wilson, who is a rookie, who's played 5, 6, 7 games in the NFL, compared to guys that have been in the league for 3 years. They've been around coaches. They've been around other veteran quarterbacks to learn from. So I'm not ready to sell Zach Wilson yet, but I'll be honest, Mike White had me excited for a minute. Josh Johnson, I think, is a journeyman, and he's going to be a backup. Mike White had me a little bit quarterback controversy kind of vibes for a little, just for a second.
Mike White had you intrigued.
Yeah, agreed. Mike White had me intrigued just because of the story and because of the perseverance that he had to go through. 5th round pick, bounced around, started with the Cowboys, then he went to the Jets, had a very interesting college career as well with 2 different programs, USF and Western Kentucky. So he was a journeyman, but a young journeyman. And the journeymen tend to have a little bit of that chip on their shoulder. And I like seeing guys in New York play with that chip because sometimes when you're anointed in New York City, the pressure gets to you very quickly, like Zach Wilson being a second pick. I was intrigued with Mike White. We'll see what the injury status has going forward.
You got to have that. You got to have that chip, that aggression in New York. I was in the city yesterday. No joke. I was having breakfast and just the aggression some people had at like 10 a.m. Like I was like waiting for a waffle and I'm hearing like people getting cussed out. I'm like, man,
oh yeah. Go to the bodega and wait for your bacon, egg, and cheese. It's not for the faint of heart. Only the strong survive in New York.
You better order it right too. Don't mess around when you order. Don't mess around. All right. Well, on today's card, obviously we're going to talk some college football. We're going to have Andrew Ortenberg joining us to talk some NFL Week 9 action, and then we're going to finish things off, of course, with our play of the day. So without further ado, let's bet it. And let's start with some college football because I'm looking at the board and there are a lot of games that just stink. And I'm not talking like a bad slate. I'm talking like these lines stink. So I got a couple for you that I want to toss out and we can talk things through. And then you obviously have some picks as well. I just want to talk about this Wake UNC game. UNC laying 2.5 points against an undefeated Wake team that is. Are they in the playoff picture? I don't know. I don't know if you can leave out. Can you leave out an undefeated ACC team? I don't know. But either way, I think that they're in the discussion. I mean, I think there's a discussion to be had around them. UNC's been done, and you're looking at things and you're like, wait, why is UNC laying 2.5 points? Seems like free money, right? What do you see when you're looking at that game?
To me, anytime a ranked team, especially an undefeated, at this stage of the year, if you're undefeated, it's not a fluke anymore. You're a good football team. You've played, 8 games, 9 games? Wake is a good team. And
Wake they haven't played any ranked opponents. No ranked opponents.
That's a very valid point.
So
very valid point.
That's just my 2 cents.
But when you look at, but I still think you have to give them credit for winning games, because I do think that what we see in college football every week, it is tough to go out there and win. So I think the respect for Wake has at least been slightly earned in the broader sense of what they've done in college football. But you're right, the market is not respecting them because they are underdogs, a 3-point underdogs, not just a point, like, almost to a key number, against a team that we've discussed on this show many times has vastly underachieved this year in UNC. I still think, though, the market is trying to tell you don't bet Wake this week, because anytime a ranked team is underdogs against an unranked team, the market says you should take a really hard look at the unranked team that is favored. And, metrics-wise, obviously Wake is going to be slightly better. They're scoring more per game. Their defense isn't playing that well. But I think UNC wins this game at home. I wouldn't be surprised if they win it big. I think this is the classic letdown spot, especially with UNC basically playing for their lives. I mean, they have Wake this week, Pitt next week. If they win those 2 games, all of a sudden an underachieving season turns into hey, we might be in the ACC championship game. So I think this is the season for North Carolina. I'm wearing some Tar Heel blue today. I wasn't trying to, but I guess maybe I'll do it just out of – it was a Freudian slip. And I think the Tar Heels win this game. I really do think they win it at home. I think Mac Brown's got his boys ready to go, and I think Sam Howell has a good game.
I think I'm with you on that. I mean, to be clear, this is a stay away for me, but I think if I'm leaning one way or the other, I'm leaning UNC. And it's mostly because of Wake's defense, the 99th ranked total defense in the country. And, we talked about the respect. Sam Howell, he was, people were talking Heisman with him. He's not in that discussion anymore, but he's still having a pretty good year offensively. I mean, it's not he can't play defense. He can't play, receiver. I mean, he's trying to play running back. I mean, he does it all for UNC. I mean, he's having a fine year. And I just don't think Wake is ready for this kind of attention. I think I
agree.
There's certain teams that are ready for this spot and expectations. Wake, they've never been a team that has had any expectations, and now we'll see how they answer. And they're on the road. I don't like that. So if I'm leaning one way, I'm leaning UNC. With that same mindset that we're talking about here, another game that stinks to me: Purdue, Michigan State. Why is Michigan State only, 2.5, 3-point favorites?
2.5, I saw.
2.5. And that, to me, is begging you to bet Michigan State. People are hammering Michigan State. The books, they have to have, that's got to be the game where there's the most liability, right? That has to be. Because if we're talking free money, that game seems like free money. And maybe I'm a sucker, maybe. But I would side with Michigan State here. There is nothing about Purdue. Hold on, you just witnessed me second guessing myself in real time. Because then I just remembered what Purdue did to Iowa. And
I don't believe in Iowa at all.
I don't believe in Iowa.
I don't believe in Iowa.
I just remembered what they did. We're talking about teams with expectations. Michigan State. Does anyone ever expect anything?
I think Iowa's going to be proven very fraudulent over the next few weeks. I really do.
But okay, hold on. Now we're looking at a real time pivot here, people. So stay with me.
Okay.
Because now I'm thinking Michigan State. We're talking about their big games. I mean, they got Ohio State coming up.
They do.
They just beat Michigan. Big win for them. This could be – is this a letdown spot for them?
The market says
this is at Purdue. This is at Purdue, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. The market says this is a letdown spot for Michigan State. However, the line is moving in their favor, which at least gives me some pause that maybe the market agrees that Michigan State's better. And if Purdue does win this game, it will be more of a surprise than people think. But the short number definitely tells you Purdue is live, because you're right. After what we saw last week against Michigan, I would expect this line to be 7, but it's not. It opened at 2.5, and it's kind of inched towards Michigan State. This is a stay away for me, because if I was getting 3.5, I would bet Purdue, and we might get 3.5 by Saturday. We'll see. Right now it's 3, but if it's 3.5, I would consider Purdue, because it's a low total game. So the points do matter. The totals, it's actually not that low. It's in the low 50s, which for Michigan State's pretty high. But if it gets to 3.5, I think that's when I would look to come back on Purdue. At 3, I think it's a no play. At 2.5, I think it's a play on Michigan State.
We've got producer Jack saying, "Stay strong, Alex. Remember Kenneth Walker." Well, Kenneth Walker can't play corner. He can't play safety, and that's where Michigan State. That's why I'm second guessing Michigan State. That defense.
I think if they gave out the Heisman today, I think Kenneth Walker would win it. That's what I'm hearing from my bookmaker sources.
Well, as a Heisman,
but they don't hand out the Heisman today.
As a Heisman voter, I can tell you that he is he's on my watch. I would hope so.
I didn't know you were a Heisman voter. That you can manipulate the markets there, big fella.
Well,
That's pretty cool.
Well, hold on, peel back the curtain a little bit. I was last year. This year, I moved, and things are up in the air right now. Yeah. I think I still get my vote.
Changed your residency.
I think I still get my vote this year.
That's pretty cool.
We'll see.
You got to tell me who you vote for. That might change my bet when I make.
Absolutely. I did nail my Heisman vote last year. First, second, third.
Beautiful. That's the best.
That's a whole different. I think back to this though. I think that right now this is a stay away for me. I think that if it stays at 2.5, I would go with Michigan State.
Agreed.
If it gets to 3, stay away. 3.5.
Key numbers matter. They certainly matter.
That's where I'm at for this, and I won't decide until tomorrow. We'll see. We'll see tomorrow how that number moves. But one game that I absolutely love, but it stinks. It stinks. Georgia minus. Listen, when I wrote this up for Pickswise.com, it was 38.5. Now it's 39.5. It's just
big
nasty.
number.
It's a huge number. It's ugly. The biggest number the Bulldogs have been asked to cover this year. The second biggest was Purdue. I think it was 37, but they ended up winning that game 62-0. Here's the thing. Missouri, they're going to be without their starting quarterback, Connor, was it?
Blasiak, Blasiak, I don't know how to pronounce it, something like that.
He's going to be out with an injury, so they're going to be rotating a couple guys in, which could be funky, but that Georgia defense, they're not one of those defenses that you mess around with rotating quarterbacks. I don't think Missouri scores, to be honest with you. So you're asking me, can Georgia score 40 points against the worst defense in the SEC? I'm going to say yes. And I think that regardless of who's in, whether it's backups or starters, because, Kirby, they're going to take their foot off the gas eventually and pull guys. They got bigger goals. They clinched the SEC. They're thinking SEC championship. They're thinking playoff. They're thinking national championship. They're not worried about pummeling Missouri. But I think no matter who's in, they're better than the dudes Missouri's got. Small play for me, small play. But I actually think, I don't know if I had the heart to go full game. First half. That's where I would go.
Yeah, first half's a good play. Actually, the line movement favors you here because I am seeing most of the tickets and most of the money on Missouri.
Because it's a lot of points.
And the line did move in Georgia's favor, which is, to be honest with you, it actually makes me want to put a little bit of a sprinkle on Georgia because we've talked about these Georgia lines. Remember the game against Vandy when it was just – it was absurd, but there was not one moment in that game where you didn't think Georgia was covering.
I think they covered in the first quarter. I think it was 35-0 in the first quarter.
Crazy. I think the market is finally caught up to Georgia. So I think we've reached the point where it's not just like, oh, Georgia's playing, let's bet Georgia. But I am fascinated to see how they handle these last 4 games. They have nobody left on their schedule. Nobody. It is. I was looking at it just now.
Tennessee's a sneaky one.
As
weird as this sounds, Tennessee
there'll be 3 touchdown favorites in that game.
Tennessee will be the best offense that they face this year. That's the game that's going to be really interesting to me.
True.
How that defense responds to Tennessee's offense.
That's fair. But I think in general, all of so their last 4 games are all at noon, and they're going to be favored by 3 touchdowns or more in all 4 of them. So in reality right now, Georgia's in preseason mode getting ready for their opener, which is the SEC championship game against Alabama in 5 weeks. That, to me, is the only game that matters on Georgia's schedule right now. And that's the only game I think they're going to get up for, which means the back door will likely be open in a lot of these games with astronomical spreads. But I still would not want to bet against Georgia right now. Either you bet them or you wait and you try to gain information because here's what I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated to see what that line is going to be against Bama. I'm hearing it's Georgia -3, but That's not confirmed because the books hate giving hypotheticals. But from what I was able to glean from, the sportsbook operators I talk to every week, I'm hearing Georgia -3. To me, that's the most interesting part of Georgia's last month. Does anything happen with Alabama too that changes that dynamic for the SEC championship game? That's the only thing that matters right now with Georgia.
Okay. Well, what are some of the games that you're on before I give out my favorite college play of the weekend?
I love Pitt this week. Last week we faded Pitt.
Do you?
I do. And last week I thought it was the perfect letdown after the Clemson game. And I thought Miami was very undervalued with Van Dyke. Now they get Duke, and Duke is just dreadful.
Duke's terrible.
I think Duke might, besides Kansas, Duke might be the worst team in the Power 5 conferences. Just the numbers are.
Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona's up there too. Good point. But the point is, I just don't see Duke stopping Pitt. Whereas last week, Miami's front, at least they've got some athletes up front for Miami. They got athletes all over the field. So I think Miami was able to kind of run with Pitt a little bit where Duke will not be able to. And I think Kenny Pickett's going to bounce back. So I got 18.5 very early in the week. This was an early birds bet. It's moved to 21. Anything south of 21, I would play it. North of 21, that's where I would probably pause. So I like Duke, Pitt at Duke. I also like Houston at USF. This is kind of a stinky game because I don't know if you saw the crazy ending of that Houston SMU game last week. So in your mind, you're like, oh, letdown spot for Houston after that absurd win over SMU, who was, having a really good year in their own right. But when you're facing USF, it's tough to let down because USF is having a dreadful season. Their numbers are brutal. 123rd in opponent yards per play, 105th in opponent points per game. Their defense is not stopping anyone. And Houston's defense is one of the best units in the nation, top 20 in opponent yards per game. And again, USF to me, losing to ECU by 2 scores. They've lost 4 of 5. So anything south of 14, I think, is a play on Houston. And then we mentioned UNC. I think this is my favorite play of the week in college football is UNC. I just don't see them losing this game at home. Maybe they don't cover the 3. Maybe they win by 2. But you want to play UNC money line, just be super safe. But I do not see UNC losing this game at home.
Okay. Well, to wrap things up, my favorite college play of the weekend, I'm taking the 4.5 points with Auburn here. Bo Nix, if you haven't been paying attention, is just playing out of his mind. He's balling. I mean, he's looking like all Auburn fans thought he should be looking all season long. Like he looks fantastic. But beyond that, that defense has also been playing really, really well. I was impressed. I mean, granted, Ole Miss was a little banged up last week, but that's still a tough offense to defend, and they looked pretty darn good against Ole Miss. And when I'm looking at Texas A&M, like Zach Calzada, I mean, I think when people think of A&M moving forward after the Bama game, they just remember Bama. They just remember how Calzada looked in that game, how Texas A&M was so dominant on both sides of the ball. They haven't been that this year. That was like an anomaly for them, Like I think Zach Calzada he's just a guy. He's just a guy. And I think that this is just a good spot for Auburn to come in with the points. They're rolling. I think they've won 4 of their last 5, and I think that loss is Georgia. I think this is a good spot, so I'll take the 4.5 points.
I like it too. Lower total game, it's right around 50, so the points matter. The market's been a little movement towards A&M, but they're getting all the action, so there's really nothing. They're getting about 70% of the tickets right now and about 65% of the handle. A&M is. So, it's kind of a fade the public spot. And if you don't believe in Jimbo Fisher, this is definitely a good spot to take more than 3. With Auburn. And I agree. And I watched Auburn really closely in that game against Penn State. And that was a tough atmosphere. And Bo Nix was game there. And, they lost by 1 score. It was close, back and forth. Auburn's got some guys. And I think they're a little underrated because of, just some overall downward trending market movement against them this year. But I wouldn't be against Auburn money line in this spot to win that game outright either.
All right, let's wrap up this college football talk and bring in our guy, Andrew Ortenberg, Pickswise editor, and dive into week 9 of the NFL.
Crazy.
Man, it's crazy. Time's flying. What's going on?
Nothing much, guys. Happy to be here. Time does fly. We've reached and passed the halfway point. It's exciting. It's a little sad too, but here we are.
Not a symmetrical season anymore, so it's like weird. With the extra weeks, there's 17 games now, so there's no halfway point. It's screwing with my numbers.
We have reached the point, though, where I think we can pretty accurately say who teams are. We know who's who. I think that's where we are at this point in the season. So to kind of kick things off here, Andrew, I'll give you first crack at it. What is your favorite NFL play this week?
Well, I don't know if this is my favorite because I got another favorite coming in the play of the day a little bit later. That's also NFL.
Okay.
My favorite NFL play that's not the play of the day. I'd say I like the under in the Sunday Night Football game between the Rams and the Titans, under 53.5. It's already starting to tick down. It was funny. I was checking last night. It was already down to like 52.5. It was still 53.5 at FanDuel. I got a 54. I think that there's a lot of things that point to the under here. I think obviously everyone's going to talk about the Titans offense and, is the Titans offense going to falter without Derrick Henry? And I think, yes, quite possibly. But that's not the only reason that I like this under. I probably would have liked the under even if Derrick Henry was playing. But we can start with that. Obviously, Derrick Henry being out, I think he gets the ball over 50% of the snaps that he's on the field for. So I would normally be a guy who says the running back's not worth anything to the point spread or potentially to a total. I think these are unique circumstances, not even just because, Derrick Henry is that valuable or that efficient. It's just because it is such a drastic change to their offense and what they want to do. I mean, everything is built around Henry. Everything is either giving the ball to Henry or pretending we're giving the ball to Henry and letting Ryan Tannehill throw off play action. Before Ryan Tannehill got to this scheme, this Arthur Smith scheme that Arthur Smith left, when Tannehill was a kind of spread it out and chuck it quarterback in Miami, he was a much different quarterback and a much worse quarterback in Miami. So I think we're going to see some regression from Ryan Tannehill. Obviously, Jalen Ramsey should be able to kind of effectively neutralize A.J. Brown in this game. I mean, this year, nobody's been throwing on Jalen Ramsey. And then Julio Jones has been really banged up and not that effective when he is on the field. He's been tweaking his hamstring every 10 seconds. He comes back, he tweaks it again. He comes back the next week, he tweaks it again. So I'm not expecting too much from Julio Jones here. And then on the flip side, huge fan of Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay. I get it. I'm just as excited as the next guy about this Rams offense. I think they're really, really good. One of the best offenses in the league for sure. I think they're being a tad overrated because if you look at their schedule, I mean, past couple of weeks when they've been putting up these insane numbers, they've placed the Texans and the Lions. Before that, it was the Giants. Before that, it was the Seahawks. The last, I'm not that the Titans are great on defense, but the last decent defense that the Rams played was the Cardinals. And they really struggled in that game. Stafford really struggled. The offense really didn't do very well. The Titans defense, everyone kind of views them as like a bottom tier unit, but they've been trending upwards. They obviously held the Chiefs to 3 points. They're finally getting a little bit of a pass rush with Harold Landry. Yeah, I think that
it's the Chiefs, but
yeah, I think the Titans defense is trending up. I mean, they held Carson Wentz to by far his worst game of the season last year, even though there was a lot of points scored in that game. Wentz played very poorly. So I think the Titans defense is going to surprise some people perhaps here, not shut the Rams down, but not get absolutely torched either and keep this game under 54.
Andrew, I like you already. This is our first show together. I like you because you're better. You're an under.
You guys are match made in heaven.
I love a good under. I love a good under. And Jared, before I get to your pick, I want to give out my under just to stick with the theme here. Before I get into it, is Matt Nagy back? He's back?
Yeah, he's back.
Oh, then I love this even more. I'm going to go with the under in the Steelers-Browns game. I think that's 39.5. Justin Fields looked phenomenal last week. I mean, look, his best game of the year probably, right? But Matt Nagy was not there. So now the handcuffs are back on Justin Fields probably, right? And I just look at this game, and this just feels like the perfect spot for a Mike Tomlin game. Mike Tomlin does nothing but play these ugly, nasty football games that only people that love football can watch because he just plays great defense and is just going to wait for you to make a mistake. He's got a rookie quarterback on the other side. And, the Steelers offense, they haven't been great, but they just win nasty. And I'm not picking the Steelers to win. I just love the 39.5 just because Mike Tomlin is just going to grind this thing out. Their defense is healthy again, and they've been elite when they're healthy. And this just feels like a good Mike Tomlin spot. So I'm going with the under in that game.
I like that. I like that a lot. Instead of giving out picks, I'll just encourage everyone to watch Pickswise Playbook on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple because I gave out 1 million picks on that show. Chris Rose is hilarious. Ross Tucker's he's a goof, but we love him. So watch that show and you'll get all my picks for the week. I really want to know more about Andrew's Niners play, because I just added this play to my card last night. I got the Niners at +1.5, and I woke up this morning and they're a favorite. Kyler Murray's not playing in this game, right? I think that's safe to say right now.
Yeah, well, thank you for teeing that up. My next play is the 49ers -1.5. By the way, Alex, I was thinking the same thing as you about Nagy. That's funny, but I was thinking about taking the Bears. I've been thinking about taking the Bears all week. I haven't pulled the trigger yet. I still think I might at like 6 or 6.5 if you can still get it. But I was thinking the same thing. I was like, oh man, I would like this a lot more.
That's a lot of points if the total's 39. I mean,
that's a lot of points.
Good point.
The Steelers, I mean, like you said, the Steelers win games 15-10, like they won last week, or Geno Smith squeak by him by 3 points in overtime. Yep. So 6 seems steep. So I might still add that, but I would hope Nagy would still be on the sidelines. But I do like the 49ers a lot. Like you said, Jared, I think it's very telling. And you were quick to point this out last week, and you were 100% right. I was on the Vikings last week. Last week on this show, I gave out the Vikings at 1 or 2 points. Obviously, it closes 5, and then the Vikings still screw us because they're the Vikings. But you were 100% right, and that line movement very clearly knew that Dak was. I mean, that indicated
the market always knows before the news breaks. The market always knows first, always.
Sure. This one, the thing is, I like it for a couple of reasons, because if it's Colt McCoy, obviously I think this number is going to cross the 3, and the 49ers are going to be a pretty significant favorite. So if you take it now and it's Colt McCoy, great. You get out ahead of it. You get a ton of points line value. You'll be feeling pretty damn good. If it's not Colt McCoy, and I'm not 100% sure Kyler's not going to play here. I know that there's some people, there's Pro Football Doc. If you guys know him, he thinks Kyler Murray's got a good shot to play. He's usually pretty accurate.
He is.
But the thing is, I was still going to like the 49ers as a small underdog, even if Kyler played this week. So even if Kyler plays, he's going to be not 100% Kyler. And we haven't really – Kyler on a severely sprained ankle who can't really run around as much. And the 49ers already defend him really well. If you look at their matchup that they had a few weeks ago, the Cardinals won that game, but barely. And that was Trey Lance's first career start. The 49ers only scored 10 points, and they had a lot of bad breaks. They had a first and goal at the 1 where they scored 0 points. The 49ers, if you look at all the metrics, metrically significantly outplayed the Cardinals in that game. And it was Trey Lance's first career start. And they've always defended Kyler Murray pretty well. So Kyler Murray on a bum ankle, I think they should defend even better. On the flip side, everyone wanted to bury the 49ers, write them off for dead. They were the most efficient team passing the ball and the most efficient team running the ball last week on the road against the Bears. Jimmy G had a great game, a statement game, if you will. And I think that he's going to keep that momentum going here. I think that Arizona's defense is a little overrated. The loss of J.J. Watt is massive in the run game. And the Cardinals have been giving up a lot of explosive runs already. What does Kyle Shanahan do almost better than anybody else? Scheme up a lot of
the ball.
Exactly. I think that the 49ers have a great matchup here, whether or not Kyler plays. And if he doesn't play, you're going to get a ton of line value at this number. If he does play, I don't think this is going to get back to Cardinals -3. No. I think it'll be a Cardinals -1 or 2. And so that you're not really you're crossing the 0. If you take it now, you're not losing a ton of value, even if Kyler plays. If Kyler does play, I love the 49ers as a teaser leg. If they go back to like +2 and you can get the 49ers to +8, I love that as well. So
I teased the Niners early in the week, and I'll go out on a limb right now, and I'll say the market is telling me Kyler is not playing in this game. Just like last week, I felt the same way about Dak. Once that flipped, the market is always first, and this moved 5 points from the opener of 2.5 already. So I don't think Kyler's playing.
Okay. I actually like that pick. I might add that to the card. That game, there was a reason I was looking at that line yesterday, and it just stunk to me. And then I saw the Kyler news and, missing I was like, something's up here. So I like that analysis there. We're talking about overrated defenses. So I'm going to go to my next play. I like the Bengals. I'm going to lay the 2.5 points against the Browns. Everyone's talking about how great this Browns defense is right now, it feels like. They played the Steelers and the Broncos. You know what I mean? It's just there's not exactly juggernauts here. And, I under a field goal with this Bengals offense, I understand conference game, but Bengals at home, I like that aspect to it also. And I just don't think the Bengals, they couldn't have looked worse on defense against the Jets, right? Like it doesn't get any worse than that. And there's no reason to worry about anything with this Browns offense. Chubb's back, right? Chubb's going to be back.
I don't think so.
I think he is. I think Hunt's not.
He spoke with the media. No, Chubb's been out too, but he spoke with the media earlier this week. So that tells me I think that he's going to be back.
Yeah, Chubb's back.
Hunt's still not out. So Chubb, okay, you got to worry about Chubb. But I still like the Browns, or I like the Bengals, excuse me, laying the 2.5.
I'm on the Bengals this week too. The reason that I really like Cincy this week is because I think the market isn't giving Mike White enough credit, and that Jets offense actually, they came ready to play in that game.
We're not talking about
Bengals. The Bengals didn't play bad against the Jets. They just didn't match the Jets' intensity for the full 60. And there were moments in that game where the Bengals thought they could sleepwalk, and the Jets said, no, you can't, because we're going to bring that intensity. So I think the market might overreact a little bit to the Bengals' poor play against the Jets, when in reality, I just think the Jets were a little more intense for the full 60. Interstate divisional game, off a loss, Cincinnati will be very, with vigor, I would say, bounce back in this spot. They will not let down like they did against the Jets. So I like the Bengals a lot this week, so I love the play.
I just realized I'm backing Zach Taylor. But
he's less than a field goal. I think we need to at least mention the Odell stuff, because I know that a wide receiver won't impact the point spread, and it doesn't. His status will not impact the point spread, but it's impossible to not say that his situation will not impact the locker room and the emotions. So I'm curious how they come out, because I would suspect there are some people in the locker room that agree with Odell, and there's some people in the locker room that are on Baker's side. And I'm curious how that dynamic plays out on Sunday.
My thoughts on that, I think that if Odell had been at practice and this was all getting hashed out, I think that'd be a little bit different. He has not been at the facility, not been around the team, out of sight, out of mind.
That's fair.
I think when you're at work, you're at work and you're handling business. I think that he hasn't been there. So I don't think that that's going to affect it. That's just how I look at this.
Sure. We'll find out on Sunday. I hope you're right, because I think the Bengals, if they play their game, I think they're playing better football than the Browns right now. And unless there is some emotional uplift from Odell's departure that lifts the Browns, I don't see them winning this game. It might be neutral, like you said, and if it's neutral, then I think Cincinnati's playing better.
Yeah. All right, well, let's wrap things up and give out one more pick here. The theme today has just been overreactions, right? So I got to wrap this up with, I think, the biggest overreaction of the week. I'm going to take the 7.5 points with the Packers. Listen, we're talking about Mike White here, and if people are everyone jumped on the Jets last night because of Mike White, but everyone's bailing on the Packers with Jordan Love. Listen, I understand Aaron Rodgers has been, obviously phenomenal for the Packers, and he can put the team on his back. We saw what he did without any receivers last week, and now it's Jordan Love. No, let's all get on the Chiefs here. The Chiefs won. They haven't been great. This feels like a big overreaction to me, more so because I think that the Packers, I think Matt LaFleur, they can find a way to get this done against that Chiefs defense. They're going to run the football. It's going to be a big Aaron Jones game. It's going to be a big A.J. Dillon game. And I think that Jordan Love will be able to do just enough. He's been in the system long enough. He knows the offense. There's not going to be that. I mean, there will be a drop-off. Don't get me wrong. He's not Aaron Rodgers. But he can perform in this spot against a bad Chiefs defense. So I'll take the 7.5 points.
I'm with
Big
you.
overreaction.
It's my play of the day. It's my play of the weekend, I think. It's still the Chiefs defense. That's the thing that gets me. So, Ayo, go ahead. Tell me why you want to tease the Chiefs.
Oh, well, I'll get to that in a second. Alex, this might make you feel a little better. I'm not a big trends guy, but I do write the trends column for the site, so I see a lot of things each week. And I found this one buried deep. The first quarterbacks making their first career start are 23-14 against the spread.
I noticed that too. That was early in the year. I was talking about that with the Trevor, all the rookie quarterbacks that are playing. It's a great trend.
Mike White and Cooper Rush last week.
100%. And Trevor Siemian. Oh, no, that wasn't his first start. But along those same lines. I love that trend.
That was Cooper Rush's first start? I feel like I've seen – really?
He's been
around forever.
But he hasn't started.
Huh.
That's a great trend.
The other reason I mean, not to keep going on this Packers pick, but that defense, people are still convinced the Packers defense isn't good. They've come along nicely. I think that they have come along really nicely throughout this season, and they're playing good football right now. The Chiefs' offense is not they're not the Chiefs' offense of last year and before. They're not great. So
the Packers are going to run the ball until they're blue in the face.
Run the ball, play defense.
Aaron Jones and Bakhtiari's back. He's the best left tackle in the league according to the metrics. I just think the Packers. I'll be honest. This is a money line bet for me too. But I think the Packers are. I think this is a great spot for the Packers getting.
That's your play of the day. Save your take.
I'll say. Well, we all kind of give it out. It's okay. We're all kind of on the same page, except for AO wants to tease the Chiefs.
Before we get to that, I'll go back to for my last regular play. I'll go back to that Bengals-Browns game. I agree with your guys' sentiment. I would lean Bengals. I haven't bet it myself. But yeah, this line basically says that these teams are neutral on an even field, where I think the Bengals, like you said, are playing better right now. But I like the under better here. I like the under 47. Again,
my guy.
I've been taking unders on Browns games the past handful of weeks. For most weeks, it's been working out very well. They had a couple of high-scoring games at the beginning of the year. And because odds makers are finally catching up, for a while they were hanging these ridiculous totals in Browns games.
Yeah.
The Browns-Cardinals total opened 54 a few weeks ago. I bet it right when it opened. It ended up closing like 48. There was some weather, but it got absolutely steamed down. And it's because – look, I know our friend John Hyslop is a stats are for nerds guy. I'm not a stats are for nerds guy.
Stats are for losers. That was the exact quote. It was from a Bill Belichick press conference where he said stats are for losers.
Heck, I like metrics. I love the advanced numbers as much as the next guy. And but that's why, and you alluded to it, I like betting unders. That's why I like betting totals a lot, is because the totals are pretty much totally based on the numbers. It's like the totals are very, very, very much a formulaic thing from odds makers that are based on the metrics and pace of play and yards per play and all of that. So you can look for spots in the totals. There's obviously the point spreads are based on numbers too, but there's a little more that goes into it in the handicap. In the totals, you can just look for spots where the numbers lie. And I think this Browns offense that is the reason why their totals have been so high. You know what's crazy? You know what the top 5 teams in DVOA on offense are? If you were look at obviously DVOA is an advanced stat for most efficient offenses. It's the Rams, it's the Bucks, it's the Cowboys, it's the Packers, the teams that sound like the best offenses in the league. And you know who's 5th in offensive VOA this year? It's the Browns. I don't think anybody in their right mind would say that the Browns are a top 5 offense right now. I don't even think it's close. I think the Browns are closer to a bottom 5 offense right now than they are to a top 5. They had 2 games. They had that one eruption against the Chargers where they scored 42 because neither team could stop each other. Yeah, that game is your classic. They say in a 16 or 17 game season, you have a few games that are an outlier in one direction, a few games that are outlier in one direction, and then you have the meat. That's the real stuff. So the Browns, they played at the beginning of the year, the Chiefs and the Texans. Again, 2 of the worst defenses in the league, and they scored a lot in those games, and they scored a ton in that Charger game, which has really inflated their season-long metrics. Outside of that, the offense has been terrible. I mean, their past few games, they scored 17 on the Broncos. They scored 10 last week on the Steelers. The week before that, they only scored 14. They've gone 3 straight games scoring 17 points or fewer. Now they're going to be without starting right tackle Jack Conklin. He dislocated his elbow last week. He's out for this game. The Bengals, again, an outlier last week, did not play great against the Jets. But before that, the defense had been playing really well. They've actually been doing well stopping the run this year. I don't think they'll have much of a trouble stopping Nick Chubb. And the Odell Beckham stuff, it's not like Odell Beckham is putting up massive numbers and you're removing that from the equation, but you are making things easier for the Bengals defense. They don't have to game plan for him. They don't have to shade anybody his way. They can focus all of their attention on stopping Jarvis Landry and the other uninspiring weapons, I would say, that the Browns have. So, and then on the flip side, Bengals offensive line is kind of starting to regress a little bit. It's kind of starting to look like the patchwork unit that it did last year. And obviously you got Myles Garrett, one arguably best pass rusher in the league for the Browns. I think he should have a field day. Bengals played a slow pace of play, even though they have been explosive in recent weeks. And like we said, tough division rivalry game. Both teams needed like blood. I think it'll be pretty low scoring.
Before we get into our personal plays, let me captain the ship correctly here. We of course have to go to the website and give the people a play of the day. So Jared, when you look at Pickswise.com, is there a 3-star play that you would like to give out?
There is. Nobody beats the Wiz. They're at home tonight against Memphis. Jason Green's giving out the Wiz. Basically money line. They're laying a point. So if you play the money line, I guess that works well. But if you want to lay the point, that's fine as well. Go to Pickswise.com. Check out Jason Green's POD. 3 stars. 3 stars on the Wiz today.
Love it. Love back in the Zards.
The Zards.
Right, now we can get into our personal plays. And Andrew, I already kind of ruined yours. You got a teaser. So why don't you
roll
start
with it?
off?
Let's go.
Yeah, I've got a teaser of the Chiefs and Rams.
I like
both
Rams
for about 1. I like the Chiefs a lot as a teaser leg. On the Rams, I like, but I like a little less. I would have loved to have. I wish the 49ers were still +1.5 or +2, so we could get them above the 7. If I would advise anyone watching this at home, watch that 49ers line, and if Kyler plays, that would be my favorite teaser leg of the week. But for now, just playing the hand we're dealt. I like the Chiefs and Rams. I'm not laying 7.5 with the Chiefs, but I don't see Jordan Love. I mean, it's a tough spot. He's going on the road into Arrowhead for his first career start. Guys like Mike, and also he found out in the middle of the week. It's not like Mike White where Zach Wilson was injured during the game and Mike White knew the entire week he was going to be the starter, or even like Cooper Rush, who probably knew all week he was going to be the starter, and the Cowboys were just kind of keeping, and at the very least was preparing to be the starter as Dak was dealing with his calf injury. Aaron Rodgers just suddenly catches COVID late in the week. Jordan Love was not expecting to play at all here, and now he's going on the road into Arrowhead. And basically the reason why I like this a lot is because I just don't see any way that he scores as much as the Chiefs do, because call me crazy, I'm like a
Chiefs believer. Oh my God.
I'm still a
you hate to see it.
believer. It's like they just can't catch a break. I feel bad. It feels weird saying I feel bad for the team that's had the most success, but like Mahomes just can't catch a break. Last week,
bad breaks.
They go right. It's like we're all saying, oh, these turnovers can't possibly continue. You know, he had a few unlucky ones. He had a few wild ones, tip balls. And then the first drive of Monday Night Football last week, they go right down the field to the 5-yard line.
Hit that guy's helmet.
Tip ball interception. So
that ball bounced like over the goalpost almost.
You see the Chiefs only scored 20 points against the Giants. And I was like, oh, geez, the offense is struggling. But they had the interception, tipped ball at the 5-yard line, and the Travis Kelce fumble deep in Giants territory. Right. So even if you only just kick field goals, if you score touchdowns, they could have had 34. Even if they only kicked field goals, they scored 26. It looks a little different. We're not really talking about the offense struggling. So I thought the Giants defense played pretty well. I thought they actually had a pretty good defensive game plan. So I'm still a believer in this Chiefs offense, and I'm still a skeptic of this Packers defense. As you alluded to, they are playing better. I'm skeptical they can keep it going. They're getting like crazy contributions from these guys who were like Rasul Douglas obviously made the game-winning interception in the end zone. He's balling out for the Packers defense right now. It's like he's a guy who was on 3 different practice squads last year. He's been in the league for a while. Devontae Campbell, their linebacker, was all of a sudden playing amazing, and Aaron Rodgers is singling him out for praise. I mean, that guy's been in the league for 7-8 years now and is all of a sudden just emerging. I think the Packers are going to run into a buzzsaw here. Without Jair Alexander, I don't see how they're going to cover all of the Chiefs' weapons. So I think the Chiefs are going to have a lot of success on offense. They can even run the ball on the Packers. The Packers still struggle to stop the run. Derek Gore, anybody. And I don't think that – I think the Chiefs' defense is starting to trend a little bit better. They've actually been solid against the run recently. So I think that's huge here because, like you guys said, I think the Packers are going to try and –
They better be really solid against the run this week.
Run the ball.
They better – the Giants did not try to run the ball, and they didn't run it very well.
Yeah, the Giants can run anyway.
Completely different. To me, that's the difference. Like when we talk about offenses to defenses, some teams don't try to run it. So when they do, it doesn't really affect the game. The Packers are really good at running the ball. If the Chiefs can stop the Packers running, then I agree that they're going to win this game. But I don't know if they can, and that's why I think 7.5, because I think the tempo is going to be slow in this game. This game's going to have a Super Bowl kind of feel to it. Even without Aaron Rodgers, it's still going to have that feel to it. Yep. And I don't think you can take 7 points and say you're worth 7 points less than any starter, reliever, I guess, or backup player.
Yeah, I hear you.
I don't think there is one player in the NFL, even if it is Aaron Rodgers, that is worth a full touchdown on the betting line over the replacement backup player. Yeah. And that's what the line told us here. From Pick'em to 8.5. I got 8.5 when it reopened right away. It's going to settle at 7. I would still play it at 7.5. I wouldn't play it at 7, but I would play the Packers at 7. I think it's my best bet of the week, 7.5. Take them Green Bay.
That's your play of the day.
Yeah.
And I'll kind of round things off. Pick I already gave out. My favorite college play of the weekend, Auburn. I'll take the 4.5 points. Zach Calzada, not the guy. Auburn playing great football. Bo Nix playing great football. He's played in tough environments before. He's been on the CBS 3:30 game before. He's not worried about this. He's gonna go handle business. War Eagle. That's just how I'm feeling. So I'm gonna fuck you guys. You guys are going NFL. I'm going college. I'm just gonna stick.
That's your bag. You do your thing, bro.
Stick to what I know.
You've been picking SEC games pretty well this year. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That's right. All right. Well, listen, for Andrew and Jared, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Let's Bet It. Good luck this weekend, guys, and we'll be back next week.